Yes, people, welcome to another episode of Beam. I'm your host, JR, and today I'm sat with a boss, literally founder of Young Music Boss, founder of one of my favorite cuisines, hot and juicy, is Jusnah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming through. Here at Beam, we like to start off and try and get a bit of how people's got to where they are. But let's start off with your background. So you're originally from Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
How was that growing up for you?
Well, I mean, I never grew up in Tanzania, but so I actually grew up in Holland.
Okay.
And then I moved to the UK. My first time in Tanzania was probably like in my early teens, but just growing up generally as a Tanzanian, I think that we were always very very conscious of the fact that we're African, we're Tanzanian. Like culture and heritage was always a strong theme and something that my mum instilled in us. Even though we grew up in like very like heavily white kind of environments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Britain, or would you? So when did you actually like?
So actually, do you know what? I've been in the UK longer now than I was in Holland,
Right,
but because it was like those key developmental kind of years. Like I still say like I grew up in Holland. Like I still speak like Dutch fluently, but I did like my whole primary schooling in Holland.
Wow.
And I came here when I was 11, 12, so going into year 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And so as you said, you speak different languages. Dutch. Obviously, do you speak Swahili as well?
Yeah.
So like, how is that like? Do you speak them fluent? Like, can you just mix between all three of them quickly? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I can. I think that it's just, I don't know. I think English is like a universal language, so naturally I just grew being able to converse in English, probably not as fluent as I became moving to the UK, and I haven't always had this accent. But so that was just quite natural because you watch English TV and all of that, and cousins from around the world, we communicate in English. And Swahili was just something that was spoken in the household, which I think for most African kids, like you have your mother tongue like always present in the household, and then Dutch is just because I grew up in Holland. Nice. But I actually don't transition through the languages as much as you might imagine.
Right.
Because it's weird, like when you speak different languages, it's like your thoughts are in a particular language as well.
Okay.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I say I get what you mean. I only speak English. So,
okay.
and a little bit of Twi coming from Ghana. But I'm not that, well versed in languages. So it fascinates me when people can speak different languages fluently. So that's why I'm asking about that. But let's fast forward a bit. You went to law school. Was it your choice or was it pressure from the parents, given that you come from an African household? Because I know what it's like. You have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor. Like, how was that for you, like, in terms of law school?
No, I didn't really feel pressure. I feel like my mum was someone who's very open-minded and always just wanted us to do something that we're passionate about. And I think that she was like, her main thing was just being able to commit to something and do well in it, whatever it is. So I never really felt that pressure, but it's like I came, so my mum is, my granddad had 26 kids. But
26 kids?
Yeah, and he had 4 wives, Muslim, African.
Okay.
And they all grew up very closely, but my mum's like immediate siblings, which is like 6 women and 1 man. All of my aunts are in politics. So like at one point it was like the Minister of Justice, Minister of Education, like was all my aunts.
The plugs,
I always
is that
had
what you're
like strong women to like aspire to be like.
Yeah.
So I think that's what kind of like drove me. But as far as doing law specifically is something I always wanted to do. I've always had an interest in like human rights. So I really wanted to become a human rights lawyer really early on.
Yeah. And it's interesting, when I was doing my research, I know that something you're passionate about is, women's rights in Africa, because we know in Africa, the women's rights ain't like they are over here in the UK. What made you want to go down that route? Was it a sort of first-hand experience of seeing what you were seeing when you went back to Africa? What made you want to get involved in that sort of law?
So I don't think it's specifically from, going back to Africa or anything like that. And I wouldn't say that I'm particularly engaged in that at the moment. But it is like human rights in general. I think I've just always been like a humanitarian, and I think that also comes from my aunts and my mum, and just being around like those types of women. Because my aunt at one point, she was the Deputy Secretary General of the UN, so she's always been very active or in like human rights and women's rights. So it's something that I've always, admired, and that I felt is relevant to me as well as a woman. Yeah. So I think that, yeah.
Nice. Now, let's talk about music, because I know music's one of your passions.
Yeah.
But you started off as an intern at Universal.
So I did an internship it was actually Warner Group. So it was Warner Brothers.
Right.
So like the film side.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was that for you? Like, what experiences did you take from that sort of live with you today?
It was really good. It was short. It was a very short placement. And it was a good experience, because I was shadowing a woman who was a black lawyer, which was very inspiring, and just knowing how, such a big organization or corporate organization, being exposed to that and learning how they operate, how they function, being able to sit in meetings and, shadow different parts of the process was it was a really good learning curve. So
where did the influence come from? Like, where did your love of music start? Like, where did that come from?
Just as a kid. I think I feel like I've never met someone who doesn't love music.
You'd be surprised,
Really?
Yeah, I've met a couple people that don't like music.
Really? I've never really met anyone who doesn't love music. Maybe maybe not everyone's obsessed with music, but I've never met someone who doesn't enjoy
Who was your go-to when you was growing up? Like
Tupac.
Still,
I'm his widow.
You're his widow?
Yeah.
My God, Tupac. So I was going to ask you Tupac or Biggie, but that's an obvious question. That's an obvious
answer.
Do
you know what? It's like, for a very long time, I've always felt like I had to ride one side. But it's like Biggie was an incredible artist, and doing what Biggie does, there's only one. There's only one of one. Do you get what I mean? And you can't not appreciate that. You can't not recognize him as one of the greatest of all time.
Definitely. But I'm a Tupac as well. Like, just I feel like Tupac's he's on my wavelength anyway, but cool. You can't separate the two. But let's talk about Young Music Boss, like incredible company that you've put together. What made you start that?
So Young Music Boss was like coming out of, so like I said, the start to my journey was kind of like, I was like set on becoming a human rights lawyer or being engaged in some kind of like humanitarian work, because I didn't really know that there was an exact avenue for law in music. But then obviously, as my academic career progressed, I realized that there is an avenue, and the music industry has lawyers, has accountants, and so I specialized in intellectual property and commercial. So I wanted to become a music lawyer. And finishing law school, I just felt like I wasn't getting the training contracts. I wasn't able to get the internships or the placements or the paralegal roles at these big entities that I wanted to work at. And then I realized that I was really just struggling trying to find an avenue. So I started Young Music Boss to sort of bridge that gap and provide, the resources in a way where I can exercise the knowledge that I've gained through my academic career, but also in allow like network building, to build that network for young people trying to access the industry. Yeah,
that's it. And we'll talk about it more, but I want to take a step back. Like, where did the name come from? How did you come up with the name Young Music Boss?
Young Music Boss? Because I felt like I was young. I was trying to be a music boss. And then it just came. And I think that I was, at the time, I was looking at, what's it called? Why can't I think of it? It's Young Money.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then I was like, Young Money, Young Music Boss. And it's like,
okay. Yeah. Shouts out to
It wasn't
Birdman
like some big like epiphany moment, but it was, yeah.
Well, the name rings, so well done on that for sure. In terms of copyrights, publishing, trademarking, royalties. These are all terms that we hear in the music business, but me personally, it took me some time to get my head around it. Like, what are these, like, I know there's like 4 things, but what are these things that people need to know in the music business? And I say music business because a lot of people don't understand the business. So like, what's the importance of knowing about these stuff before artists get into the music business?
It's very important, and it's of the utmost importance, because those are the components that govern your career. You know, like, I feel like obviously as an artist, your job or your desire is to create. So you put different people in place and you build a team around you of people who have different skill sets and can focus on different parts of the game, so that you can focus on creating. But I think that it's very important for artists to just have a general understanding of what these things are. Like, you know, copyrights, you know, the set of rights that arise from you being a creator, creating works, how that operates, you know, like, to just knowing the basics of, like, when you record a song, there's 2 sets of rights that arise. You have the publishing, you have the recorded, and just understanding the different things that trickle down from that. Understanding the different types of royalty streams that exist, because that's how you get paid. So knowing how that functions is only of benefit to you as an artist.
What's the common mistakes that you see artists doing? Because I'm sure that you have worked with and still work with a lot of artists, but you're probably thinking, why did you sign that? Or what's the common mistakes that you see with artists doing in terms of contracts?
So I don't actually work with a lot of artists, and I haven't worked with that many artists directly. I mainly work with helping to consult different teams around artists.
Okay.
But I would say the common pitfall is just lack of understanding. And yeah, I think that's really it. I think that just not paying enough attention to the idea that you as an artist, you're a business. You know, and you know, your manager or your team, that they work for you. Your manager is the CEO of your business, and you need to care and be just as much aware of all the different aspects of that. And I think that I would say that the most common pitfall is just the lack of understanding and knowing little things, like even from the start, like you and your manager are not supposed to have the same lawyer.
Okay, that's
things like
that. Interesting. That's interesting. And do you know what? Yeah, you say like from the start, but we've seen artists like Meek Mill, NBA YoungBoy, even Pounds talk about complaining about their contract situation. And these are like fully-fledged artists, that have sold millions and millions of records. Like, how from your perspective, like, how does it get to that point where they're fully-fledged artists, sold millions of records, and they're still complaining about their contract? How does that even happen?
I think often it stems from, like, when I think of like a most recent example, like Meg Thee Stallion and 1501 Entertainment, like she's still trying to get out of that initial contract, but it's usually where they reach a certain stature in their career, but that they're still subject to that particular agreement that they had from early on, where the terms may have looked different. And sometimes it's not always that the label is this big, like, evil entity, but you didn't have the leverage. You weren't Meg Thee Stallion when you initially, entered that deal. And at the end of the day, they took a risk, and they need to be able to secure return in their investment, and also to protect it. At the end of the day, it's a business, and that's how labels operate. Their business is recorded music, the recorded music industry, and that's how they move. And I'm not saying that, I definitely think that now that there's a bigger awareness in terms of, like, we understand things, there's more access to information than there was previously. So labels have done a lot of dirt. Not like they still continue to do a lot of dirt. But I'm just saying that oftentimes these artists enter deals at an early stage in their career where they weren't able to negotiate what a Megan Thee Stallion today might be able to negotiate. So their deal structures reflect that.
Definitely. One big debate, and there's something that I've seen that you've talked about before, is independent versus major label. What's your thoughts on when you should do what, or who should do what?
I think that the main thing is that you need to understand your goals and know what your goals are. I don't think that there's anything wrong with signing to a major label. And I think that it's also great to, operate as an independent. But like I said, it just depends on what your goals are, because obviously with signing to the main attractions of signing to a major label is the budgets that you're able to be exposed to, the different things mediums that you can tap into being under like a major machine. So the journey is a lot longer as an independent label. The struggles are a lot, tougher as not necessarily independent label, but being an independent artist. So it just depends what your goals are and what is more logical for you at that time in your career. But I think that in this day and age where we don't have to rely on labels for like distribution, because that was the major thing back in the day, where we don't have to, the labels would monopolize most of the distribution, mechanisms or channels in the industry. It's not like that anymore. There's so many different distribution platforms that can, help in doing that. So you don't necessarily need that aspect from a label anymore. Right. And if you can push your journey as an independent artist and retaining as much ownership as possible, then I think you should do that. And then potentially further down the line, when you're in a position where you have a certain amount of leverage, you can then approach a label with that stature of being able to negotiate something that is more favorable for you, or having a more joint venture kind of thing rather than.
So it really depends on your situation. There's no real right or wrong answer or right lane to go down. It's just more about what your goals are, as you were saying.
Exactly,
so that's interesting. YMB Awards 2022. We was there, amazing event. So congratulations and well done. As I said to you off camera, it was an amazing experience to be there.
Thank you.
Where did the inspiration come from to start that up?
Push P. Yeah, Push P, turn me up.
So I feel like in the music, well, firstly, like I've always been like obsessed with like music, and I keep referencing this, but like the little booklets that you get in CDs.
Yeah.
Like I always used to be like obsessed with looking at them and like finding out who the writer is, who the producer is, what the label is, who the publisher is. And like I said before, like I didn't really understand what those different terms meant or what those different entities do. But it helped me to understand that there is a whole executive team that operates behind an artist, or operates behind the final package. And I just feel like in the industry right now, we don't really have a platform that awards those individuals that essentially drive this industry forward. And you have a few platforms where you have like, the odd like manager award or like industry champion, where it's like a legacy award for individuals who've been in the game for like 30, 40 plus years and have really built this name for themselves. But I don't feel like you need to wait that long, because as you saw at the awards, we have like managers who are behind like Jay Haas, J5, Young T and Bugsy, who are like the biggest artists and producers in the game right now. And those are two young black male individuals, and why can't we give them their flowers now? Same for publishers, same for A&R. So I feel like that needs to exist.
Why do you feel there is a lack of support for people behind the scenes, but also as well, like I feel like, for example, with the event, I didn't really see it on most of the blog pages. Like I didn't feel like it was supported. Maybe other events are. Why do you feel there's a lack of support for that type of event?
I feel like because we're not the Brits yet, but I don't care. I really don't. I really don't watch that. Because I know that I know where it's heading, and I know that it will catch on, and people can support if they feel like it. Support if they don't see value in it, then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, well, so being supporting for sure.
Oh, thank you.
100%, like definitely. But like you said it before, the music industry is a male-dominated industry, and you're a female making some major moves, some major waves. Do you still find challenges today in terms of breaking through certain doors? And if so, like why do you think that is?
I think that it's the music industry, like anything else. I think that it's because we live in a patriarchal society, and that like permeates every single aspect of our society, which means that the music industry doesn't escape that. I think that that's why it is. But I know so many women so many women who are just doing absolutely outstanding and incredible things. And I think that there are women who are breaking barriers in the industry, especially now more than ever. But I think that we're only starting to get to a place where we give them visibility and we give them the credit that they deserve. So hopefully that will change. But I mean, you still have the major music companies where it's still all male and all white at the very top. But I think that that's changing, and I'm really optimistic, and I think that we're going to see that change.
Definitely. And what you're doing is making strides towards that. So
thank you.
Congrats for that. You're big on giving back, and YMB Jobs of the Week for me is one of those things I look at and be like, "Raw, I didn't even know they were hiring," or like, "Raw, that's a good job for someone." Like, how did you firstly start to pick up that these people were hiring, and then where did the idea come from to actually sort of bring that to the forefront and sort of put it out on YMB?
So actually, it was something that I wanted to build into the website and not necessarily social media in the future, but it was actually one of my interns who was like, you need to, we should actually do weekly job posts, because we just get a lot of requests from different companies who are like, can you please share this, or can you share this to your network? Because they know that we have a lot of young people that are aspiring to access the industry that pass through our network. So they just ask us to share that. So then it just kind of developed into the weekly job board.
Sick. And I know quite a few people that I know that I've looked about, have you seen on YMB Jobs of the Week and stuff like that, this intern.
Oh,
so
good.
It's definitely making some moves. I'm gonna jump to Hot and Juicy because I know it bangs. I need to talk to you about some sort of subscription afterwards.
Have you had it?
Yeah, listen. I'm a fan.
Anytime.
But how did Hot and Juicy come about? Because obviously we talk about music, that's your passion, and then it's food. So how did Hot and Juicy come about?
It just happened, really. I've never really desired to be in the food industry. I'm not some trained or qualified chef or anything like that, but it was my business partner, Samantha. What happened was that we went to Las Vegas, so we just travel a lot anyway. And it just turned out that we went to Las Vegas on this occasion, and we had some of these seafood boils that you have. And then when we got back, we were looking for somewhere similar in the UK, which there wasn't. And then eventually we found a girl who does them. And we had it. It was not good. I literally rinsed the fish and made my own sauce.
What?
Yeah, because I was like, this is such a waste of good fish. I rinsed the fish and I just made my own sauce and I ate the lobster. And then a week later, Samantha was like, we could do this, And I was kind of like, what are you actually talking about? What do you mean we could do this? And I kind of dismissed the idea. I didn't entertain it at all. And then a week or so later, she had started kind of testing some recipes, testing it out to some of her friends and family. And then she had created a kind of rough edit of a logo.
Okay.
And sent it to me. It's what do you think of this logo? And I was like, I want in. Let's do it. I was like, the logo looks good. Let's actually try and do this. And then we started in our individual kitchens. So then I was servicing North London. She was servicing kind of East London.
Nice.
And then it just grew. Within a month, it was everyone's Hot and Juicy, Hot and Juicy, Hot and Juicy, because we did a lot of influencer marketing.
Yeah, I see. I want to talk about that, but
so that kind of led to us being kind of the buzzword in London, and then it just grew, and then we realized that we can't actually continue to safely operate within our kitchens, and actually it wasn't really that legal. So we decided to do it properly, get the relevant licenses, and then it is Hot and Juicy is what it is today. Yeah.
No, as I said to you before, I'm a fan, and every time I've had it, I've bought 4 or 5, introduced it to people around me. So it's definitely banging. But it didn't come without its challenges. I was looking at a couple of things, and the first launch in Bethnal Green was a bit of a it went kind of left. So talk to me about that.
So basically, the first day, the first weekend at Bethnal Green was just an absolute disaster. Like, there's no other word to describe it. It just turned into like 90% of complaints, when maybe there was like a handful of customers who were actually satisfied, or maybe they actually didn't say anything, but it was like 90% complaints. And then we were like, oh shit. Yeah, we were like shit. And we, had our moment, we broke down, but then we kind of like went back to the drawing board and tried to, correct some of the things. So what happened was actually transitioning to a commercial kitchen where we're dealing with like industrial equipment. We didn't really anticipate having to adapt some of our practices and some of our processes, our methods in preparing like larger quantity of foods.
Okay.
Adapting our recipe to, going from 60 orders maybe, or 80 orders a day to 200 to 300. Like, we had to make those changes. And then what we did is we had like a focus group where we invited every single customer that complained back. And we just had an open and honest conversation, and we just asked them to give us all the feedback that they wanted to give us, to suggest any areas for improvement, and in a way to convert them back to customers. And some of those customers are like some of our loyal and most biggest ambassadors for Hot and Juicy.
Wow.
Now, so
that's mad, yeah, because normally people that go through that situation where they've like had a disastrous launch, like they won't face it head on. Like they'll probably just, do you know what? Like, let's just move on to the next. But you've actually went back to those customers. Like, I feel like the customers probably respect you even more for that now.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So yeah, no, that's amazing. We talked about influencer marketing, and yeah, some of the influencers that you've got, like, or that you got. ZZ Mills, Black Youngster was a funny one. He really plugged it for you.
He's actually crazy, man.
Yeah.
No, he's genuinely nuts.
Yeah, like Pakey Cakey. But like, how did you, like, for example, Black Youngster, like, how did you even link up with him to get him to plug Hot and Juicy?
I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I think that it was the girl who was dealing with his hospitality on his trip in London.
Nice.
Reached out to us, and then we connected. But I mean, we do a lot of influencer marketing, but a lot of these people are like our genuine customers, and they actually just come to us as well.
Naturally.
But yeah, that's how it happened with Black Youngster, and it was a crazy night. He's a crazy man.
No, he definitely is. He definitely is.
Mama. I love you, mama. Gang shit, bitch, seafood. Pussy. Yeah. Hot juice. Girl, I wanna see you twerk. I throw a little money if you twerk. I don't really think you can twerk.
Staying on marketing, you also launched, is it If You Can Take the Heat?
Yeah, if you can't take the heat.
If you can't take the heat. And that was an interesting one. Like, I know, like, we've seen things like, is it Hot Wings? Like, they have a similar thing in the US and stuff. But yeah, like, how did you come up with that concept as well? Was it like why do you think that was beneficial for you to come up with that concept?
So it was, we're always experimenting with ways that we can like kind of like expand the brand. And I think that was another like kind of like natural progression that we felt at the time, because we have a lot of content in terms of like, on social media, like, the whole mukbang kind of like craze where people are like eating, and the ASMR craze. And then we just felt like, it would be exciting or interesting if we developed a show around it, which actually we've benched at the moment. It's not something that we're doing, but we are working on developing something in the future. Wow. So we've got another product. We've got actually another product that we're launching.
What? Hot and Juicy product?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Can I plug it? Can I plug it?
Of course you can plug it.
Oh, you might have to pause it a bit. You might have to pause it for a second, because I need to go grab it.
All right, cool. Pause it. Yeah. So right now we've got a Beam exclusive. I feel like it's our first one, so I want to really make this a moment.
Okay.
But Hot and Juicy has got a new product, and you're launching it exclusively on Beam. Like, you're telling people exclusively on Beam.
I wish Samantha was here now, but yeah, go on.
Listen, look, Samantha, listen, we love you. But yes, what's the new product? Where is it?
Boom!
Boom! Hot and Juicy classic sauce. Now tell us about that. Tell us about that.
You see?
Yes.
Okay, so this is, I really wish Samantha was here now if we were going to do that. But, so basically, this is our new product that's coming to market. So some of our most loyal customers are aware of it. But so what we're most known for is the sauce, obviously. So now we're going to have it packaged and we're taking on retail. So hopefully in the coming future, you'll see it in your local supermarket.
Yeah, and the sauce bangs as well. Like the sauce
Thank you.
bangs. So I know this is going to be flying off the shelves. I'm thinking about how much I'm buying already. I'm thinking about 5 to 10. Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, so when Samantha comes on the show, because I feel like she needs to be on
Samantha,
the show,
when you're ready.
we could talk more about this, and it will probably be in a more exciting phase of development. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. This is the first exclusive, hot and juicy, classic sauce coming soon.
Yeah.
And I want to be the first in line, so just let me know when that's popping off.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Cool.
So you're big on giving back, and for Young Music Boss, you make it a point to pay your interns.
Yeah, so I mean, at Young Music Boss, I have interns who kind of like fluctuate.
Okay.
Because naturally, a lot of the interns that we have at Young Music Boss, they're on their journey.
Yeah.
So a lot, which is good, because a lot of them end up at like the Universals, Sonys, and stuff like that. So I've got my little inside people there, so it's good. So I mean, in terms of like Young Music Boss, we're actually, even though we're a limited company, we aren't, the massive corporation that sometimes people imagine that we are. So I try to compensate the interns to the extent that I can. But yeah.
Well, at least you try. Do you know what I mean? Some companies that are way bigger are not trying. So
yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kudos to you. Speaking of music, we recently lost a legend, a pioneer, Jamal Edwards. Rest in peace. And he left behind a massive legacy, and it just goes to show that life is short. A young man who's done so much. But speaking of legacy, what would you want your legacy to be, with YMB?
I would want it to actually be similar to Jamal's, because I think even though it's very, very difficult to top, there will only ever be one Jamal Edwards, but I feel like I want just YMB to be known as a door that they could walk through as their starting point in their career, and as a platform that helped them, connect the dots and navigate the industry. Yeah,
man, as I said, and again, RIP to Jamal, big up. I was reading one interview and I was like, I feel like this lady's a psychic, because someone asked you a question, and the question was what do you feel is going to impact the music business? And then you said Spotify. This was a few years ago. And then now fast forward to 2022 and Spotify is the main distribution for music.
Yeah.
So the question is being that you are a psychic, what do you think is going to be, what do you think is going to be the next thing to really impact the music business moving forward?
Well, NFTs, as we're seeing at the moment, and actually I kind of predicted that as well.
Okay.
NFTs, as we're seeing, definitely. And I think that one of the predictions that I made in that article that you're referring to, I think it was a record of the day. I also spoke about cryptocurrencies and how it's going to be in blockchain, how that's going to start affecting the industry, which NFTs is kind of a channel for that. But then I think that is going to probably build on, be explored more, I think.
Listen, as I said, you're psychic. So whatever you're saying, I'm believing. So when they come back to this moment in the future, and then when blockchain and everything with crypto's here, but when it kicks off in the music business, I'm going to say, see, Jusnah told us. So amazing. What advice would you give to any artist, anyone who wants to get into the music business? What advice would you give to them?
Study the game. Really just study the game. Try and have a general understanding of we spoke about before, of the things that govern your career. You're going to build a team and you're going to have people around you who will be able to advise you, because your job is to create. But by having a stronger understanding means that you know the functions and you know who to put in place where. as well.
Definitely. And as a female, right, like what advice would you give to any females who want to get into the music industry? Because we talked about it being a male-dominated industry. Someone like yourself has been fearless and broke down barriers. What advice would you give to any females wanting to get into the music industry?
I think just trust yourself, and as long as you have something to bring to the table, there's no one who can, who can take that away from you. So I feel like just trust yourself and trust your ability to compete.
Nice. Jusnah, it's been an amazing conversation. I've taken away so much. Where can people find you? What's next for you? Where can people tap into what you're doing?
So Young Music Boss at Young Music Boss, Hot and Juicy at Hot and Juicy Shrimp London, at Hot and Juicy Shrimp LDN. My personal is at Diamond Lane London.
Jusnah, thanks a lot for coming on Beam, and yeah, looking forward to your journey moving forward. And I'll say it again, when the sauce comes, holler at me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, man. It's always exciting when I just find it weird. Like, why do people want to talk to me? Like, well, it just made me feel like a celebrity.
You're the plug, making major moves. So congratulations to you, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, and big up you guys as well, because you're highlighting a lot of key individuals, and I think that it's really important what you're doing as well, especially like the black entrepreneurs that you're giving a platform to and giving visibility. So big up yourselves as well.
Oh, amazing, thank you. We're trying. Bless.
Like that, yeah.
So is it a Y&B you got interns?
Yeah,
Alright,
got
cool. Let me ask that
interns
question again.
Yeah.